Yes, it's that time of the month again, and look, she's already asleep. I promise I won't make it too boring, but it's super important that you hear these numbers. Cue the music. I'll be right back so you know who we are. Welcome to the Halifax Real Estate Channel, where we talk all things real estate. I'm Brenda K with the Halifax Home Selling Group. I know, stats. I said this last month, right? Stats can be boring, but they're super important, and I'm going to talk about a couple things in the market right now because a lot of people are saying to me, oh, I think the market's tanking. I think it's slow. I'm going to kind of do the little graph with my hand here at the end. But let's get right into the numbers here. So the active listings, June 2025, we have 1,207 active listings. That's up 224 from last year, or 19% over June of 2024. Where we saw 963 active listings. The homes sold for the month of June were 553 this year, as opposed to 533 last year. Nice even number of 20 or 3.7%. The homes sold year to date, so we're talking from January 1st to June 30th. So there were 2,537. So that's 41 more sales year to date. That's not really a big number when you think about it. Last year, there was 2,496 homes sold in the same 6-month period. So days on market, 29, that's up from one last year, which is 30. And I'm gonna talk about how this affects you at the buyer as soon as we kind of go through the numbers. The month supply, we're just shy of 3 months. Nobody lists a house. We'd have enough inventory for 3 months. We were about 2.5 months last year. I wanna talk about the average price, because the average price this year is $633,005. Now, that's up $38,451 over last year's $595,554. Our average price this year, you can see, it did go above 6, and it went a good bit above 6, like 33,000 and change above 6. List to sell price ratio, I talk about this number. This is really important for buyers to understand, because when they're bidding, you know, they need to know this is not the market where I say, well, I'm going to go in and get a deal. Now, that being said, if it's a higher price listing, or even if it's an overpriced listing in the lower category, if you see that it's been on the market for 60 days or 90 days or 100 days, as of one I offered on the other day and still got a no after 100 days on the market. But that's neither here nor there. We did find another home for my buyers that they loved. So that number, like last year, it was 101.6. So 1.6% over the list price last year. Yes, it is still mainly happening with the homes 550 and under, and that's because the demand is there. The appreciation, 6.3% this year. Now you can see here, last year it was only 1.9%. But again, I mentioned this last night. Check out 2022 when it was 17%. That's pretty good for sellers, right? But not so good for buyers. So we don't want to see those double-digit numbers in appreciation, or we're going to end up like Toronto. And Toronto right now is going through a huge market correction, especially on condos. We do not want that floating down our way. So I had said to you at the first of the video that I'd kind of show you the graph. I'm just going to show you with my hand. So you kind of start in January, and you're going along. You're February, March, April, May, June 30th. You're up here. So June 30th is like Christmas Day. Okay, it's the busiest day for lawyers in real estate. Christmas Day in real estate. Then what happens? You hit July and you go, whoomp. And especially the first 3 weeks of July, like, honest to God, I had to check to see if my phone was working. It was that quiet the first couple weeks, because you know what? It's vacay mode. Everybody is in vacation mode. That's the only thing on their hand. So it's gonna come back up a little bit, maybe starting the middle of August, and then September we're gonna take another boost up. October strong. We're gonna flatten out in November, December, and then fall into our January market. So that's the graph on it. And we, you know, that's how we decide. And this is why I want to talk about buyers and sellers, and why these numbers are so important, and why it's so important that the agent you're working with knows it, because that's how we give advice, knowing what's going on over there. Like, you know what someone said to me the other day? They were listed with someone and their listing's over, and they called me. I went in and they said, you know, there's just absolutely nothing selling right now. Well, last week, 115 homes sold. So you see, there still are, but the problem is it was overpriced. So this is not a market where you can test the market, you know. And I often say to people, and I'll just say this quickly, there's times that people don't list with me because I don't give them the number they want to hear. You know, it's the math, it's the market. You've got to be realistic. And here's the thing. I'd rather disappoint you at the time of the listing appointment than down the road when you don't get the number that you have. And we did a video a few years ago on setting the list price and the psychological aspects of that. It's important to know that when you list a price over what it should be, like $50,000 or $60,000, the disappointment is real for sellers, because as soon as you tell them a price, that's what they have in their head. That's what they're spending. Sellers, price your houses. They've got to be within market value. Yes, it's a bit slow over the 650 mark. That being said, if you're a unique property, I had competing bids on $1 million plus property. Buyers, I had a colleague say last month, or maybe a couple months ago, and it really rang true for me. She said, it's a seller's market, but the buyers are acting like it's a buyer's market. Why? They're just tired. They're just fatigued. I get a lot of little listings around $550. Love that category. Love the downsizing in the suburbs. So anybody out there watching is looking to downsize and you live in the suburbs, we're desperate for homes in that category. Now, like instead of getting, say, 3 or 4 bids, what's happening is I'll have 2 and then I'll have the other agents like, I'm just going to sit back and see what happens. And that's the sentiment that is really ringing true in this market. So before we go, I just want to do a quick with the price points here. You can see them up there, and you can see that we have our category again here this year. The 500 to 600 is the high category, and you can see where the other ones have dropped off. If you look at the 300 to 400 category compared to June of 2022, it is the average price. As I just said, they're going up. We saw that this year with, like I said, 38,000 plus in it. So I'm Brenda K. I want to take a minute and say thank you so much for tuning in. I really enjoy. I love what I do. I enjoy real estate. I like talking about it, and I like keeping people really informed. So thank you so much for tuning into our channel. And if you hit subscribe, it helps the algorithm push the videos out. So we now over 500 videos on the channel that I'm very proud of. And of course, my sidekick here, Miss Frankie, is with me every day. So if you're thinking of buying or selling real estate in Halifax, think Brenda K, and I will see you next month. Cheers. Cheers. Cheers for Miss Frankie.